Alright, so we got a 2009 Ford Escape in here. What's going on is when actually you don't have to hit the brake. When you just start it up, it has like an air escaping noise coming from the brake pedal area. And so far the brakes are working fine. The engine is keeping up with the vacuum demand of the brake booster. But what it is the brake booster itself is leaking. And it's leaking into the interior. It's got a vacuum leak, probably a seal, where the pedal attaches to it, and it's making that air escaping noise. So when the brake booster goes bad, it could do that, or you can get like a real hard pedal. And if it's a hard pedal, that could be a vacuum problem or a check valve problem. I'll kind of show you that before I take it apart, so you know what to look for. But I already checked this one out, and it does not have a vacuum problem. It's got plenty of vacuum from the engine going to the brake booster. It's just actually leaking out the seal, I guess, and you can hear it real loud in the interior, especially when you start it up, or if you hit the brake, it'll sometimes make the noise. I'll show you that too. But anyway, we'll go underneath the hood real quick, and I'll show you. Well, I'll take you inside first, and I'll show you what the sounds like, and then we'll go under the hood. All right, so we're right here by the brake pedal, and I'm sure it's picking it up. Got a loud air escaping noise coming out. It kind of like chills out for a little bit. If you hit the brake, you can hear it. Anytime you hit the brake, it'll make the noise. So I'll go out. So we have a problem with the booster here. The booster needs to be replaced, but I'll show you some other symptoms. Like maybe you have a real hard pedal and you don't feel like you have any kind of power brake assist. That's real common on these boosters, and it may not be the booster. I'll show you a few things to check before you just replace the booster on it. Alright, so we're on a hood on this. This is actually a 2009. It's actually really clean. Usually these 2009 Escapes, this vintage, are pretty rusty and a lot of miles. I think this thing's only got about 60,000 miles. So anyway, here's your brake booster right here. It's where your master cylinder is attached to, and that's what gives you power assist to make the brakes easier to press down. And a lot of times it gets its power assist from the vacuum on the engine. And this hose here goes from your air intake over to this. Now, if your booster wasn't working, say you had a real hard pedal, what you could do, and I've already done it on this one, even though I knew what this problem was on this one before I even checked it, I just wanted to check and make sure. Sometimes this check valve can be clog or something happens to it and it won't allow enough air from the engine to operate it. It's pretty rare, but it does happen. Or you can have a cracked vacuum line or hose comes off or something like that. Maybe someone worked on it or did something to it and knocked the line off, didn't put it back. I've seen a lot of times, the hose will be cracked or something wrong with it, especially on the older vehicles. This one, like I said, it's 2009, but it's in pretty good shape. Not a lot of miles on it. That doesn't mean that you couldn't have a cracked hose or something like that. So what you want to do is just start it up, and if you can pull this out. They usually come out a little bit of pressure. Pull it out and put your finger right here. If you feel vacuum on this, then you don't have a problem. You should feel a pretty good vacuum suction on this. And if you do, then this valve is okay and this hose is okay. So then you can just eliminate that. And then you're back to looking at this booster. And these boosters can fail without making the air noise. You just have a real hard pedal and you can't. It's hard to stop. So that's how you eliminate if it's a vacuum issue. Because if this booster loses vacuum, say this was cracked or messed up, and there was no vacuum getting to this booster, it won't help your brakes assist. So that's the first thing you want to check if you have a real hard pedal. Just check over your hoses, your check valve. So I already did that on this. I started it up and put my finger over this. There's a lot of suction here, so there's nothing wrong with it. So we're going to go back in the car and start taking this booster off. On most of these, you should be able to just loosen the master cylinder and move it forward a little bit without taking the lines off. You don't really want to get into bleeding it and doing all the hydraulic stuff. So hopefully this one will be able to do that and then sneak this booster out without taking the master cylinder completely out. But we're going to go underneath first and get it loose from underneath, and then we'll come back out here and deal with that. Alright, so once you're under here, you're going to find this plastic tab that's right, try to get my hand in there. this plastic tab right here, and there's two little tabs on it. You might have a bunch of grease on it. The factory puts a bunch of grease on there. Take a towel and wipe that grease off, and then on each end there's two little tabs. You may have to rotate to find the tabs. Just compress those tabs and that pin should pull out. And once that pin pulls out, then you're released from the brake master cylinder. You know, you release the brake pedal from it so that you can take the 4 bolts out or 4 nuts out to actually get the booster out. So just find this tab right here and compress those 2 tabs, or find that stud and then compress those 2 tabs, plastic, and push it out, and then you can go on to taking the 4 nuts out for the booster. Alright, so here's that little plastic pin you're trying to get out, and this is a closer look of it. And here are the 2 tabs you got to press in on. I just used a pair of small channel locks and just kind of pressed in on it and pushed at the same time. And once you get past this part that you're compressing, it'll slide right out. Now this will hit the brake pedal or the accelerator pedal housing or whatever, the housing under there. You have to push the brake pedal in a little bit to clear it, and then it'll pop out. And then you have the 4 nuts, 4 13mm nuts that hold the booster in on the inside. And you can just follow that. It's pretty easy to see it. You know, here's one hole right there. Then there should be one over here. Then there's 2 on the top. And how I got those out was just a 6S extension with 13mm deep well and a ratchet, but you can use a regular ratchet. And then that's all we have to do underneath here. So we'll go under the hood real quick, and I'll show you how to take it out without taking the actual master cylinder off and losing your fluid. Alright, so now we're outside. You may want to move your dipstick tube out of the way a little bit. These lines here are flexible. So once we get this, these 2 bolts out, these 2 nuts out, this thing should pull forward enough to get this out, no problem. Now, on some of the other engines, this is a V6, I think it's 3 liter. Some of the other engines, the air box comes around right here. If you have the air box that comes right here, just take that out, not the air box, but the hose and the cover, and then this should clear enough. You do have the low brake fluid sensor. You got to unplug that from the master cylinder, and then I believe these are 2 13mm. And I'm just going to use the same setup I used to get the booster loose on the inside. 13mm extension. And like I said, once we get this out, once you get your master cylinder out of the way, this should pull out. So I went ahead and took the clip off over here for the low brake. Just press on the tab and pull it straight out. Now this thing should pull straight out without breaking the lines loose. You have to pull on a little bit, but it's not bad. And you can see these lines are pretty flexible. Now we can just pull this thing out. It's going to be a little bit tight. It goes in there pretty far. You should be able to get it out without taking these lines out. Ow, my finger's stuck. Don't do that. Dang it. Alright. So here's your booster. Here's your booster. This will go back on the car unless the new one comes with it. And it was leaking air out of here somewhere. It's actually a little bit wet too. I'm going to check the master cylinder, make sure it's not leaking in the back. If it's not, then we'll go ahead and put the new one on. So anyways, you can see there, you just got to finagle a little bit and it will come out. Alright, so like I said before, you want to check and make sure your master cylinder is not leaking in the back. Make sure it should be completely dry. There should be no fluid at all or wet in any way. This one's completely dry, there's no fluid on it. There's actually a warning on this, I already took it off, on the new one that says if you install it with a leak, it voids the warranty. So anyway, we're just going to slip it back in. This is the vacuum line, so that's going to go towards the passenger side, obviously. And we're just going to slip this back in. bolt started. It helps to kind of remember where you took the old one out so that you can remember how you remember how to slide the new one in. And I'm stuck on the line harness a little bit. There we go. So I'm just going to kind of rotate this until that's back in there. What I'm going to do now is go back inside the car and put those 4 nuts in and hit the brake pedal back up, and then we'll come back out here real quick. Alright, once you got it slid through, go ahead and put your pin back in. You definitely want to make sure that's snapped in all the way. You don't want that falling out. And then go ahead and put your 4 nuts back in. You got the 2 on the bottom and then the 2 on the top, which I don't think I'll be able to get up there. They're not too far up though. They're pretty easy to get to. Once you get those 4 nuts and that pin snap in, just make sure it's snapped all the way. You don't want that coming off while you're driving, and then you're done inside here. All right, in the back of the master cylinder, you do have a seal. Just take a pick or whatever you have and take it off carefully. And the kit comes with a new seal, so we're just going to put that on. And make sure that it's sealed up behind the master cylinder. So it's right behind it's on the master cylinder, right behind it where it goes into the booster. So that's all you have to do there. I'm going to go ahead and put the seal on, and then we'll start putting this master cylinder back where it belongs. Alright, so there is a rod that comes out of the booster that hooks to your brake pedal. Make sure the center of your master cylinder goes through that. You don't want to put this in there and kind of jam that rod up the wrong way or whatever. So, and that's not a sexual reference, just a normal. There is a rod in there. So make sure it goes in the hole, and then it's lined up before you tighten it down. Alright, now all you have left, since we didn't open up any lines on the master cylinder, we shouldn't do any kind of bleed or anything like that. All we have left is to plug in the low brake sensor, low fluid sensor, and don't forget to plug in your check valve that supplies the air to the booster, and we should be done at this point. So I'm going to go back in and start it up. Well, put our dipstick tube back where it belongs, and then we'll go back in and start it up. Make sure there's no air coming out and the brakes work good, which they should. So let's go back inside real quick. Alright, so we're just going to start up, make sure there's no air leaking out of the system. There shouldn't be. If I can find the key here. I'll start it up. You can see you can't hear anything, it's quiet. I'm going to go ahead and press the pedal. Now when you press the pedal, you should hear air for a split second, but then it shouldn't be like a constant air like we heard before. You can see there's no air coming out, you can't hear anything. Now you do hear that little initial air, that's totally normal. So that's it, this one's fixed. Pretty easy job on these, not too bad. Probably about an hour, maybe a little more if you haven't done them before. So anyway, that's it for that 09 Ford Escape brake booster. And like I said before, if you have a different engine, you may have to remove part of the air box, but that's about the only difference I know between the years. So anyway, thanks for watching. As always, God bless.